Good evening, Matt Wordsworth with ABC News. The machinery that's toppled Australian political leaders like clockwork for a decade again whirred dangerously into action for Malcolm Turnbull today. Reading the movement, the Prime Minister has backed away from any attempt to pass a centrepiece of his energy policy into law. A backbench rebellion risked humiliation for the government on the floor of the Parliament. And by retreating, Mr Turnbull's bought himself time against the threat of a full-blown Liberal revolution against his leadership. Here's National Affairs correspondent Greg Jennett.
The aim all along was to keep the lights on, because shadows are ominous places. Harbouring the darkly determined with motives that never dull.
So have you lost confidence in Malcolm Turnbull?
It's not about personalities. It's not about him, it's not about me.
Energy policy can never be touched in the coalition without pitching personalities against each other. Tony Abbott took a hit a week ago and he's been a lightning rod for discontent ever since.
Would Peter Dutton make a great Prime Minister?
Peter Dutton didn't need to do or say anything. Frenzied opponents of the Prime Minister's energy guarantee first had a policy to neuter.
Good morning, how are you?
And with two cabinet ministers, they duly did.
Governments do not present legislation in the House of Government, the House of Representatives, unless they are confident it will be passed.
A backbench revolt, even involving only a handful, had created a dilemma on the plan to lock emissions targets into law.
We don't have enough support to do that.
Faced with certain defeat, the resolve was to retreat from the only piece of legislation the Coalition Party Room had been asked to support on the energy plan. In its place come a suite of measures to sharpen control over power prices.
Safety net. Second, a big stick to keep the big companies in line. And thirdly, back in investment in new generation.
If it works, annual household savings could range from around $180 to $400 a year. But they're not the numbers that drove this policy reset, the third in less than a week.
I enjoy the confidence of the Cabinet and of my party room.
Some Nationals have proclaimed the Prime Minister's energy policy abandoned.
We fight hard as Nationals for the people who we represent. We always will. And we've got a good outcome.
But whatever it's called, a parliamentary comeback for the emissions target legislation is unlikely.
Mr Turnbull gives up the fight. He is truly a white flag Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister was pushed to the brink, and in retreating, he may have punctured some of those pent-up pressures building against his leadership. But politically inflicted backdowns also come at a cost to authority. That hasn't yet been tallied, but it will be endlessly exploited.
Or is it the case that whenever it comes to a choice between his principles and his job, this Prime Minister stands for nothing at all?
My government has delivered one big reform after another, again and again.
And now, more than ever, all future reform will begin and end on the backbench.
And we're joined from Parliament House by the ABC's political editor, Andrew Probyn. Andrew, how serious is the threat to Malcolm Turnbull?
Well, Malcolm Turnbull earlier this day was really on the precipice. He survived the day, but he's bruised and battered. In the name of pragmatism, he surrendered to the climate rebels in the Coalition Party Room, and consequently, his authority has been greatly diminished, perhaps permanently. And there is the sense that, and a clear sense, I should say, that in not going towards legislating those climate targets, he was choosing not to put that leadership under the test. He didn't want it to be a de facto test of his leadership, a vote he might have lost.
Yeah, so we know the Liberal Party meets tomorrow. Any signs of a leadership spill and a possible challenger?
Well, Matt, earlier today there was talk, rumours abound in this place that there would be a motion for a leadership spill. Now, there's no indication that that will happen, but we know that Peter Dutton has been encouraged by others in Queensland to consider running. We know that the LNP members and senators have also been encouraged by Gary Spence, the President, and down to run. But the wisdom of that is not shared by all, that Peter Dutton's appeal is not so great south of Gympie. So if it does come to a vote at this stage, I'm assured that Peter Dutton doesn't have the numbers. That said, there's still choppy waters ahead for the Prime Minister. He's got to extract himself from this company tax cuts for the big end of town and work out a way placating the Catholic school sector over schools funding. So plenty of opportunities for the Prime Minister to snag in coming days and weeks.
All right, Andrew Probman, thank you.